Good morning. We are live on a fantastic day in the San Bernardino Mountains of Southern California's Inland Empire. Tora is here. She's just kind of not wanting to say hello, so she's turned her head away. Hi, Jan. Okay. What a day. What a week. What a year. It has been cool this morning. You'd think it was spring or autumn, but no, it's the middle of summer. And I actually needed a sweater this morning. So much for climate change. You know, they've been pushing this climate change, since 1960 that I remember. And I'm sure they were pushing it in the 1950s because I remember looking at the incinerator in our backyard and Mom saying that it was such a shame we could not burn our trash anymore because the climate was changing and incinerators put out smog. I guess there should be a comma, Oswald, but I don't care. Look, here's the rest of the shirt. Let's eat kitty with a comma. Punctuation saves cats. You can't really see it too well because of all the glare here. I thought you meant a comma in hi, Jan. Commas save cats. Oh well. So for at least 60 years, they've been telling me in schools and on the news that we have to quit burning things because it's changing our climate. Well, I haven't seen much of a change. And old people, of course I'm one of them now, but I mean ancient people tell me it's always been this way. Southern California weather is crazy. Oh, and by the way, those wildfires, they're up north. I'm fine. We've had a number of small spot fires. The biggest one, I think, was 40 acres, and that was in a canyon. So it's a miracle that the firefighters got it out. Somebody's car alarm is going off. But most of every darn one of them so far has been caused by humans, either through negligence or on purpose. The big one in the canyon, I believe that's the one, was caused when a driver of a stolen car was fleeing from the police and crashed. Oh dear, the world is waking up around me. Code enforcement did not bother me this year about the weeds. They'll see like a 3-inch tall grass in my front yard and throw a fit and threaten all kinds of fines, and the county will come out and remove it themselves. They didn't bother me this year. I guess I've finally convinced them that I will pull up the 3-inch tall blade of grass without you having to pound me into the ground over it. No, it was either last year or the year before. They sent me a notice that I had old tires all over my yard. Oh, I went outside and walked around and I could not find one single tire in my yard. I think they were hallucinating, or some idiotic neighbor was harassing me. Now, I had taken the wheel off my wheelbarrow, but it was not an old tire, it was the wheel, the axle, the rim, and the tire all in one piece, waiting to be put back on the wheelbarrow. That's it. But you could see it from the front. So I just put it in the back yard where code enforcement couldn't see it. And the neighbors couldn't see my wheelbarrow's wheel. Oh, Paris and Havana, Cuba, and Berlin. They're all crying libertad, liberté, liberty, freedom. And in Cuba, they're flying the American flag. So I hope America, under this administration, will actually help them. It's horrible. And we're headed down that road. Now, once again, I have serious reservations about Trump. A little power can go to a person's head, and I think it did. But Biden? Over 100 executive orders on his first day. He got inaugurated and signed all those orders. Who does he think he is? Our public servants have forgotten what the word servant means. Oh, it's quiet in the Southwest. Gerard? Southwest of France. Oh, the Languedoc? Home of the Cathars? Beautiful wine country, huh? I thought all the best wines were in Alsace-Lorraine. Of course, the French export their inferior wines to us and keep the good stuff for themselves. Just for comparison, I bought a bottle of imported French, it should have been Spanish, but it was French sherry, a fortified wine. So not top of the line to begin with, but I like sherry. And then I bought a bottle of California sherry. Couldn't drink the French stuff. It was disgusting. It was awful. It was like a syrup with all kinds of sediment in it. Horrible stuff. The California sherry, wonderful. I'm not that much of a drinker, but I do know a good wine when I taste one. I learned a little bit from my husband. Philip K. Dick considered himself a wine connoisseur, and he did tell me that the cheapest California wine is going to be better than anything that's imported, and I think he was right. Oh, Bordeaux. Yeah, that's a good wine country. Which wine was it? I think it was Bordeaux wine that Phil said was actually when they took the leftovers from all the Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs and Cabernets and poured them all together to make what they called Bordeaux. And it was Bordeaux. It was, from Bordeaux. But now the California wineries will do that as well. I don't think they can actually call it Bordeaux because it's from California. But hey. Oh, and England is actually growing wine grapes. Not in the quantities that they grew it during the global warming period. The came right before the Little Ice Age. Now, how many SUVs were driving in the 1600s? How much? Well, the English were burning wood and coal and peat. I imagine all of Europe was. But they didn't even have steam engines yet. They were heating their homes and cooking their food. Oh, the exegesis. Yeah, I've been trying to read the exegesis because I'm writing about it. But it's so emotional for me. I'm very close to that. But yeah, Phil does talk about me a lot in his letters to people. And I don't think he understood that he was the only man I ever wanted. He had one foot out the door, flirting with and even taking out other women. And he thought it was okay as long as he didn't have sex with them. Oh, Howard's grandfather is Bertrand Russell. It's all about control. All the small businesses got shut down. Well, Costco and Sam's Club and Walmart stayed open. And of course, the fast food chains could still sell takeout in the drive-through. But mom and pop shops were devastated. And when the stimulus for small business came out, McDonald's got stimulus, McDonald's franchises. And they ran out of money before the small mom and pop shops could get any help. Skull and Bones, well, Skull and Bones in itself is nothing to fear. But that's where the scumbags meet each other and form lifelong partnerships in crime. The left is now more anti-small business than the right. Well, the right isn't exactly anti, although they want you to grow to a point where a big corporation can buy you out. That they ruined Famous Amos cookies. What was it? Pillsbury? Somebody bought them out. And someone's knocking something wooden apart out there. They've ruined so many things that used to be good before a corporation took over. In the cookies, they replaced the butter with Crisco. They used inferior chocolates and so forth. Tom's of Maine, yeah. They used to have a toothpaste that I liked back when I had teeth. When you start a small business and it begins to be successful, either the corporation drives you out of the market or they buy you out. So I don't blame the guys who sell. They're trying to survive. I blame these corporations, which are nothing more than royal charters. Like when the Queen of England gave so-and-so the right to colonize Virginia. I forget who that was. Excuse me. Did the Queen own Virginia? No. I believe it was mostly the Cherokee. And by the way, my Cherokee ancestors lived in houses that they built. They taught the white man how to make a log cabin. They farmed. And so did the Mohawks a little farther north. And don't get me started on the Iroquois. They were monsters, cannibals. They were always making war on nearby tribes for no reason other than that they just wanted to go to war. But for the most part, the Native Americans were not these naked savages that they've portrayed. Those who were nomadic, of course, lived in temporary homes, tents that they called teepees or wigwams. But they weren't much different from the Basque shepherds in northern Spain or the people of Finland following the reindeer. And the Inuit, Eskimo, Inuit up in the north, far north of North America, with their igloos and so forth. Yeah, they had a culture and a civilization, although we need a better word for civilization because that basically means that you live in a city. After the flood, what did God say? Same thing he said to Adam and Eve. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And what did the people do? They sat down and said, oh, let's build a great big city with a temple complex, and we'll just live there. No wonder God scrambled up their languages and scattered them. They were disobedient. And cities traditionally have been filthy places. That's how the plague spread in Europe and why people who could fled to the country when the plague was rampant. Of course, the idiots took the plague with them when they left the city. Now, I'm not talking about some city of, 100,000 people or a village with a few hundred. Crestline has 10,000 residents, more or less, but we're actually several different communities bundled together in that figure. that's fine. You can have indoor plumbing and public transit. We even have a McDonald's, but I don't eat there. Ugh. For one thing, our McDonald's doesn't change their oil in their deep fryers often enough, and sometimes just walking by on the sidewalk, you can smell rancid oil. And people have gotten food poisoning from them. Anyway, yeah, but we're not the city. The cities are Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Detroit, New York, Paris, Berlin, London, the big ones. Hong Kong, although it's a very overcrowded city. Well, it's more than a city. But anyway, they have their act together. They keep it clean, but it still seems artificial in some ways. Getting away from nature when we need to go back. My poor tomatoes, first they got fried and roasted on 90-degree day. Well, no, when I first got them, it freaking snowed in June. Then we had all these 90-degree days. The poor things were shriveling. And now the weather is more like autumn or spring. So they're covered with green tomatoes, but it's going to be a while before they come ripe. And this is not unusual. It's kind of weird, but happens all the time. California is on this weird cycle. My grandparents said it was a 7-year cycle, 7 years of drought, followed by 7 years of flooding. But it seems to be more like 9 years now. And this is the time for unpredictable weather. But it's kind of strange. And I kind of suspect there's some weather modification involved. As in Nick Begich's book, Angels Don't Play This Harp. Something weird goes on. Over and over, the sky clouded up. We're supposed to get rain in June. This is July, and we kept getting days where the sky would cloud up and it would get cool, and you'd swear it was going to rain. But then the wind blew the clouds away. Weird. Anyway, we are in a matrix. I don't mean that we're like, why do I forget things just as I'm about to say them? Keanu Reeves, I believe, his character in The Matrix. We aren't lying there hooked to a bunch of wires with the computer feeding off of us, although that day might come. The way things are going with wearable tech, the next step is embedded chips, and they're working on it. There are tattoos that can contain computer chips so you can be located wherever you are. Anyway, what's his character's name? It's on the tip of my brain. I'm going to cheat. If I can get the mouse to wake up, it went to sleep again. Oh, it's giving me some irrelevant stuff. Here we go. It is Keanu Reeves. It's not giving me the name of his character. All right. Neo, of course. And then there's Morpheus, the sort of the boss. Ah, the chat finally lit up. It was stalled. Hi, Buckeye. Hi, Morgan, and thank you. Yeah, Neo. Well, there's this new. I keep seeing ads on YouTube for this show. I think it's called Loki. A guy who's an awful lot like Morpheus is handling Loki, the Norse trickster god. And he's very much like Neo, except mischievous. I mean, nobody has an original idea anymore. I just watched a video of the first ever episode of the new Twilight Zone, aired in 1985. It was based on a story by Harlan Ellison, who is a talented writer, although he's also an asshole. But as I'm watching it, I'm going, hey, wait a minute. This is just like that episode of Star Trek with the good Captain Kirk and the bad Captain Kirk. Although I think it really stems from Ellison's realization that he's bipolar, manic depressive. But it's a good story. This guy splits. So there's his good self and his bad self, and his good self takes over his life. And his bad self doesn't like that. I won't spoil it for you. I won't tell you the ending. Oh, but Loki seems to be a ripoff of The Matrix, and yet I think they did, from what I've seen in the ads, it looks like they did a better job of it than The Matrix. So I'm really curious to see it, but I can't subscribe to every freaking channel just because I like one of the shows they have. My sister gave me Netflix, put me on her family plan, and the Amazon Prime videos just come with the Amazon Prime, which I get for half price because I'm old and indigent. They didn't even ask for proof of income because I'm old. Anyway, Amazon wants to store all my pictures for free. I'm going, why do I want my personal photos on Amazon? Maybe Dropbox if I ever figure out how to use it. And they want to give me free music streaming. But frankly, I kind of like watching them on music videos on YouTube. Oh, I tried StreamYard because someone else recommended it. Ain't gonna work for me. I might be able to use what's it called? Boy, am I blanking today. That ain't it. Oh, that's it. Zoom. If I can figure out how to stream to YouTube from Zoom, I could bring on callers, guests even. But I have a feeling that it costs money to use Zoom that way. And I haven't figured out yet how it works. But I would love to be able to bring on guests or take calls. Shutterfly. Oh, goody. That's scary, what I think about. Selling info and adding facial recognition. Oh, alien slugs are a different idea, Howard. Yeah, I guess. That was meant to be humorous. Zoom is easy to hack? Well, I always assume that I'm being watched and hacked and recorded. That way I don't get into trouble. I'm cautious. But we've really built a matrix. I mean, we spend more time interacting on this thing called the internet than we do in person. We even tell our family members, don't bother me, I'm watching YouTube. I've had friends come to the door and I've had to tell them I'm doing a live show right now. But I do tell them they're free to come in and participate. That's one step in the right direction. Yeah, Tora's still here, but she's turned her back on us. See? There. Man, the sun is getting brutal today. We actually got some rain yesterday and the day before. Wow. It's nice weather, but it does seem odd for midsummer. I suspect that we're going to get the August monsoons this year. They might kind of bleed into September, but the August monsoons in Southern California, quite often, the rain will just touch your shoulders but never hit the ground because it evaporates because it's so hot. It's just weird, but it isn't climate change. It's weather change. The weather changes, the climate changes. We had an ice age. Remember? Oh, no, of course, we weren't there then, but we learned about it. It ended some 10 or 12,000 years ago, but we're still thawing out from the ice age. Gee, you think? Of course, we had a mini ice age in I believe it was the 1700s. The Thames River froze, so London had these ice fairs where people set up booths on the frozen river and sold things and offered games and stuff. Ice fairs. Oh, poor Howard, leaky roof. A year before last, someone finally patched my roof. It has a crazy corner where there's roofs of different heights coming together, and between the fallen tree leaves and pine needles building up, and I don't have a pine tree. That's the neighbor's pine tree. Anyway, all the skunk would build up and hold the moisture up against basically the wall of the house on the higher roof. Then the mice chewed through the soft wood and set up shop in my attic. Well, the water would come in and flood my broom closet. Ah, horrible. It's finally patched, but I can no longer go up on the roof and rake the crud off of it. I can go up, I can't get down. Because over the past 10 years, I've broken both my legs. So the good leg isn't that good, and coming down involves landing. And even if I don't fall or drop to the ground, my legs really hurt coming down. And I'm not as flexible as I used to be. Anyway, let's see. Matrix. I can't believe how many people put no value on actual books with paper and ink that you open up and read. I had intended to talk about another book that someone sent me, but I haven't been able to find it. It's been like that for a while. Ah, jeez. Okay. Wow. I'm still searching for lots of things, but let me grab a book. How about the exegesis? The person who rearranged all my books without asking permission lost the dust cover. I kept it off the book so I would not tear it up while I'm reading the exegesis. Let's see, folder 30, I'm on page 313. I haven't read this yet, so I don't know what it says. I just kind of leafed through and that's where it opened. The real conspiracy goes much deeper than conspiracy buffs, such as Bob Wilson, suspect, although he almost had it in the theory that our universe is a hologram created by the intersection of two hyperuniverses. So that goes to something like the multiverse and quantum physics. Fact is, our reality is hologram-like, a spurious, satanic interpolation by the artifact. And I should point out that Phil used the word artifact, and it should be capitalized, but it isn't in this book, to denote the enemy of Valis. What's a good word? I'll settle for spiritual force for evil, as in Zoroastrianism with Ahriman, the bad guy, and Ahura Mazda, the good guy. Okay, the artifact constituting a prison which shuts out information that, like Runsiter's messages, That would be a reference to Ubik. Runsiter's messages would reveal our true situation. It's Klingsor's castle, and there's a footnote. Number 45. All right. It's an end note somewhere in the back of the book. Or is it at the back of the chapter? Or the section? Well, heck with it. I'm going to cheat. I know it's from an opera or something of that sort, but I don't remember. Parsifal. Okay. Klingsor's Magic Castle. Okay, so it's Klingsor's castle, apparently substantial but actually irreal. All the pranks, Marx Brothers gags, joke information, etc., which they, Valis/Zebra, are bombarding us with, are for the purpose of unlocking us from the hold this mere hologram-like fake universe has over us. Valis isn't telling us it's fake. He's showing, demonstrating it by melting it into silly putty tricks. The consensual validation hold by the phenomenal world over us, the gloomy spell, must be broken. Valis is making nonsense of our real world, real in quotes, nonsense of our real world. He's showing us that we can be compelled to see and give assent to anything. Very, very relevant. I believe it was Stalin who said, among other things, just take over the schools, educate the children, or rather indoctrinate. That's the best way to control a population. He also said it doesn't matter who votes. What matters is who counts the votes. Sounds familiar. Now, January 6th. Yes, there were lots of peaceful people not causing any trouble. But there's this place called the Tunnel, and a very rowdy gang got into that and actually attacked the police and beat several officers. One was terribly abused. I mean, officers had to go to the hospital. I am horrified. The crowd outside the Capitol milling around was not the problem. But this tunnel, which is the path that legislators use to get into their offices and the chamber, where they have debates and vote and stuff. How did a mob get into there? It isn't like a great big tunnel. It's a narrow hallway. How'd they get in? And where is that tunnel? That was horrible, and I do not condone violence, but I still say nobody set the Capitol on fire. Nobody rammed the front doors. Someone opened the doors. Yeah, there was some glass broken. Windows and glass doors were broken. But it just doesn't rise to the level of Portland, Oregon burning down more than once, mobs attacking the state government buildings in Washington and Oregon and even California. Go figure. But mostly Washington and Oregon. Even here in San Bernardino, which is, when you talk about the Old West, this is the Old West. Wyatt Earp's family lived here. Wyatt Earp was a sheriff in Colton, or either police chief or sheriff. I'm not sure which they had. Colton is nearby, and he almost had to shoot his own brother over a railroad dispute. Anyway, there was a riot in which they were trying to burn down the Bank of America, which I call Skank of America for various reasons. They broke windows on small shops and gas station mini marts. They're still boarded up. All that glass costs money. And with COVID and riots and stuff, they're not making a lot of money. So even though they're open, their doors and windows are covered in plywood. One guy who owns a liquor store had all his windows smashed, but they didn't steal the booze. They didn't take the liquor, they just smashed up his windows and his door. Ah. But the law enforcement got serious when they decided to set the mountains on fire. They put a stop to that real quick. We've suffered enough major wildfires, primarily because the various state and federal agencies have neglected the forest and the brush covered hills, the foothills. They haven't cleared the brush, they haven't removed dead trees in decades. Our forests are overgrown and unhealthy. And finally, the local Indian tribe, and they call themselves Indians, the San Miguel Indians who have that casino in Morongo. San Miguel Mission Indians, it's their official name. They brought in some goats to eat all the brush on the hillsides. The government wants to do that, but they can't get through their own red tape. But you see, the Indians are a sovereign nation. They are not subject to county codes and restrictions. Of course, they can't commit crimes, but they can bring in a bunch of goats and clear the brush. Happy goats and happy hills and happy people. Yeah, well, breaking into our local branch of Skank of America is not going to bring down the corporation. Someone needs to look into the crazy things. Let's suppose a bank has $100 in your checking account. They can use that to make a loan to somebody else of $1,000 that they don't have, because they can lend 10 times as much as they have, even though it's your money in your checking account. And the way they get the $1,000 is from the payments on the loan that they made without actually having the money to lend. And by the way, you don't loan money, you lend money. And the money that you lend is a loan. I'm a recovering English teacher, but I'm not budging on certain things, and that's one of them. The other thing is, what happened to the past tense? The weeds sprang up, not sprung. The simple past tense is sprang. Now it has sprung up, but it didn't sprung up. It sprang. Nice scheme, too bad I didn't think of it. Yeah. Imagine if I had $100 and I said, here's $1,000 and lent it to someone. They'd think I was nuts or a real crook. And suppose the $100 wasn't even mine. I took it out of someone else's pocket. Yes, right, Africanus. I shrank the kids. I didn't shrunk them. I know a few kids I'd like to shrink, but that's another story. And let's see, when you hang your clothes in the closet, you hung them. But when you hang a murderer for murder, you hanged him. It's a different word, even though it looks the same to us. The convicted murderer is hanged, ED on the end. The clothes in your closet are hung. But, we've been misusing that one for centuries, so I don't get terribly upset if you say the murderer was hung. Not terribly. But for crying out loud, you lend money, you don't loan it. Okay, Tora just isn't going to say hello to her adoring fans. And if I wake her up, I have to give her more treats. And she's already gone way over her quota. Loaned and lent. I can't lend any money. I don't have money to lend. And besides, every time someone has borrowed from me, whether it was a cup of sugar or $10, I just did it with the expectation that I would never get it back, so I would never be disappointed. But when someone did pay me back, I would be thrilled. And it worked for me. It's getting close to an hour online now. And I still don't know where I would look for that book I wanted to talk about. Never rearrange someone else's books. The books that were in boxes were on their way out the door to be sold or donated, not to be shoved into random spots in half a dozen different bookcases. And the ones that I had on the shelves are also shuffled, disorganized, rearranged. So, like last week, I Stargazer, and the second volume of that series is Heretic, so that I had them together on the same shelf. Can't find Heretic, don't know where the hiss it is. And when you have hundreds, I figure about 1,500 to 2,000 books in the house, not to mention the ones that are still in the shed. It isn't a simple matter to search for one particular book. It just isn't. I was going to eat a potato chip, but I realized it might gross you out. I have a habit of talking with my mouth full when I'm on the phone, but no one can see me then. Anyway, I'm at my wit's end. I'm still waiting for they do it for free, the inspection. They don't fix it, but they can tell me exactly what's going on and what it needs. Meanwhile, to get hot water, to do the dishes, I boil it on the stove, and I'm quite often just to heck with it, bathing in cold water, because it's summer, it won't hurt me, and I don't want to boil more water on the stove. It's driving me crazy. I know that it needs a thermostat, and that is not the same thing as the thermocouple. The thermocouple is that coil of copper tubing, and at first I thought it needed that, but it definitely needs a thermostat, the thing that shuts the burner off when it reaches temperature. It isn't shutting it off. Even when I put it on vacation mode, the burner kept going. Oh, till and until. Well, when I hear someone say till, I think of digging in the soil to plant crops. But in poetry, I like till much better than until. Natural gas. Yes, my water heater is natural gas. California's governor wants to get rid of natural gas and make us go all electric. Gas is a very clean fuel. And where does he think electricity comes from? Yeah, some of our plants burn natural gas. Some burn coal, some burn oil, and some are nuclear. And we do have a wind farm here and there, and solar panels. But most of our electricity comes from burning coal and oil. Gas is a clean fuel, natural gas. And it's like, oh my God, carbon dioxide, CO2. Well, I guess we're all going to have to die because that's what we breathe out. Oh, dear. CO2 isn't anyway. Problem is China and India burning huge amounts of really dirty coal. With all our regulations here in the US, it's very clean coal, like lignite. In China and India, they burn whatever they've got, and it isn't even pure coal. It has all kinds of crap in it. It puts out noxious gases, poisons. Not only black smoke, but also particulates, the things that really get your lungs if you breathe them in. It's kind of like every power plant in that part of the world is like a mini Mount St. Helens every day. We can't fix the climate, even if it is being damaged. As long as China and India and places, mostly China and India because they're so big, but other places too, continue polluting on a major scale. They rarely show you this, but in the cities of China, quite often you can't see the sky. You can't see the end of a city block because of smog. Even in its worst days, Los Angeles was not that bad. I mean, the air was nasty and I hated breathing it, but I could see where I was going. The sky was brown, but I could see it. Even out here in San Bernardino, this valley catches all the smog from Los Angeles and gets worse than Los Angeles. And even here, it was never that bad. And there are that was not every day. The smog here would blow away and we'd have clear skies. It was just when a weather phenomenon known as inversion kept the smog trapped that it got really bad. Exactly. Yeah, if I couldn't see it or chew on it, I didn't want to breathe it in. But we can't save the climate as long as they're spewing out all that crud. We just can't. We could go to zero emissions, it would make no difference. Los Angeles had smog before the white man ever came here. The Indians, the Native Americans, didn't live in Los Angeles. They would visit for certain festivals, but they didn't live there because their campfires created smoke and it stayed and stayed and stayed, and they called that area the land of 1,000 smokes. So because they had the sense not to live in Los Angeles, San Bernardino was not smoggy. There were some battles over land in this area between tribes. And the natives were not exactly nomadic, but they would live either down in the valley to the south or up in the desert to the north during the winter, and then spend their summers in the mountains where it wasn't so darn hot. And San Bernardino gets hot, but the desert up above is even worse. And it's a dry heat. Yeah, it dehydrates you. Well, they kind of quit visiting the mountains after the Mormons massacred a bunch of them at Strawberry Flats, or I think it was up by Twin Peaks. Strawberry Flats was Crestline. It was up by Strawberry Peak. Anyway, some Indians from the Bad tribe killed some loggers, and the Mormons punished the wrong tribe. They killed a bunch of peaceful natives. So they just quit coming to the mountains. It's like, forget it. We don't want a war. China is a good example. They're promising to cut emissions 20 years from now, and of course they won't do it. Yeah, well, there are T-shirts and posters that say it's a dry heat, and they show a skeleton or a skull. Oh, wow. Yeah, this area is still about half Mormon. They're back to, for a while it was okay to call them Mormons. Now you have to call them Latter-day Saints. My family has a history with the Mormons. They called themselves Mormons. But we're about half Mormon and half Scientology. So if the end times really come, or Armageddon, or an invasion from Russia or China, we're covered. The Scientologists will just lock themselves up in their compound, and the Mormons will help their neighbors. That's what they do. I don't have much use for their screwy theology, but most of them are very good people and good friends to have. Although I do know of an exception. I had a neighbor who was some kind of rather high in the hierarchy of local Mormons, and he didn't like me and kept trespassing on my property, thinking it was part of his yard because it wasn't fenced. He demanded proof that it was mine, so I gave him the surveyor's, not my surveyor, the county surveyor's sketch of the property line from a map that anyone could get on the internet. He still was not a good neighbor until he learned from my granddaughter. My granddaughter used to ask all the neighbors, "Can I go to church with you?" And they always said yes. Well, she went to church with the Mormons, and I warned her, "You'll be there 6 hours." And she said, "Oh, no, that couldn't happen." She was there for 8 hours. Anyway, she told him who I was married to. "My grandfather is Philip K. Dick." And all of a sudden, he was really nice. I call that hypocrisy. Well, up here in these mountains, they have one of the offices waiting for L. Ron Hubbard to return. And there's a rumor that, their current leader's wife is imprisoned there because she wanted to leave. I don't have the fan on. I gotta real quick turn that ceiling fan on. I got itchies. We have low humidity up here, and I haven't slathered myself with enough body lotion. Okay, let's get back to the exegesis. Enough rambling. More from folder 30, early 1978, page 313. we talked about the real world and Dallas breaking in to make a joke out of the false world. Here we go. So the nonsense phenomena are real, and the substantial and normal and expected and sensible are not. Our criteria for distinguishing the real from the irreal are totally reversed. Oh, that's a colon. To us, the real is the solid, the heavy, the serious, and the irreal is St. Elmo's fire, will o' the wisps. Amazing. If this be so, then my writing has been of value, beyond the obvious contribution of indicting the universe as a forgery, and our memories also. I present the most accurate and stringent, rigorous, revised criteria to pull the truly real as set out of ground. So, set would be the focus of an image, ground would be the background. Kind of like those pictures where it could look like an old woman or a young woman. There's one that could be a poodle or a woman. And they say you can only see one of those images at a time. Okay, set versus ground. Where was I? And in parentheses, open parenthesis, love, making exceptions, humor, determination, etc., the little virtues, close parenthesis. And as Lem says, that would be Stanislaw Lem, the Polish science fiction author, I somehow pile trash on trash until it compresses into something else. The neighbor's using a jackhammer. The mirror opposite universe, open quote, universe seen backward, end quote, insight is complete, as in Pot Healer, the Galactic Pot Healer. Galactic Pot Healer is considered one of his minor novels, but I think it's very, very good. Okay, no sense trying to read aloud with a jacket. Let's see, Oswald says, Lem was very underrated. There's a reason Nietzsche was so proud of his Polish heritage. Well, not only that, the Polish Knights stopped the Mongol hordes from taking over all of Europe. Maybe I can get a little info on that. Phil used to say that, and I kind of researched it, but I don't know a lot of detail. I don't remember a whole lot. 1240 to 41, the Mongols defeated Poland. Hey, I don't want Wikipedia. The Teutonic Knights. It's a long. I'm down a ways. Terrible as the Mongol invasion into Poland was, it was merely a diversion of the Mongols' primary objective, Hungary. So the Mongols were sacking different parts of Poland, which was really developed. But here we go. Past the edge of the Carpathians and into Poles under Boleslav Krakow. And he defeated another Polish army at Chmielnik. Turning their attention back to Krakow, the Mongols seized and burned the city. They assaulted the Silesian capital of Breslau a few days later. Breslau held out, and the Mongol commanders, knowing better than to embroil their small army in a long siege so deep in hostile territory, passed the city by and resumed their search for Duke Henry and his army. Well, Henry found that he went to these places and found the Tartars already there waiting for him. Upon seeing the Tartars, Henry drew up his forces in 4 squadrons. The first group was made up of knights from various nations, supplemented by the miners from Koldberg. Or is that a G? I think it's Goldberg, under command of Boleslav, son of the Margrave of Moravia. Sulislav, the brother of the late Palatine of Krakow, led the second group. The third group consisted of knights from Opole, led by the Opolian Duke Meshko, and Teutonic knights from Prussia, under the Heermeister Popo von Ostern. Father from the East is what that means, I think, or maybe Pope of the East. Duke Henry led the fourth group, which was made up of men from Silesia and Breslau, knights from Velkopol and Silesia, and French Knights Templar. So this was before Philip the Fair of France broke up the Knights Templar. Yeah. Let's get to the part where who won the freaking battle. Engagement began, blah, blah, blah. They had a couple of charges by the Poles about the Polish lines, shouting, Biegajce, run in Polish. The Polish chronicle is uncertain whether the man was a Tartar or one of the conquered Russians pressed their service with his knights. Seeing Meshko's retreat, Henry led his fourth battle group into the Mongol lines and once again engaged in close combat. After a fierce fight, the Mongols again began to flee. Their yak-tailed standard, that's a flag or a banner, with the crossed shoulder blades of a sheep fixed to it, was seen to pull back. Its bearer had joined the retreat, and the Polish knights pressed ahead. The Mongols won. Attila the Fourth of Pest, P-E-S-T, brought in a huge army. He was already on currently they're Hungarians, yes, as in Budapest. And they pretty much finished off the Mongols with their huge, whether they won or lost. Oh, my connection is unstable. The Polish Knights saved Europe, especially France. I've been on for almost an hour and a half, so of course my connection is unstable. But Phil was very aware of the role of those brave Polish knights in stopping the Mongols. Even though they lost some battles, they had the opposite of a Pyrrhic victory. They lost the battle but won the war. Did the opposite. Yeah, they might have lost the battles, but oh, for crying out loud. They might have lost the battles, but they won the war, and the Mongols did not take over all of Europe. Tartars are basically Mongols. And anyway, I think that's enough for one day, especially when my connection is unstable. Come on, you evil thing. There, here we go. Thank you all for listening and have a wonderful day. Yeah, you can read the whole thing if you so choose. Yeah, Polish cavalry saved Vienna from the Islamic army too. And thanks for the prayers, Howard. What? Are you kidding, Oswald? Come on, you evil thing. I hadn't heard about that. I'm still getting used to Caitlyn Jenner. She's running for governor of California. But so is Larry Elder, and so are 20 other people. Of course, the audio's back. I'm signing off. It's been almost an hour and a half. I threatened to hang up the phone and the reception gets... I'm not on the phone, I'm on the computer, but you get the idea. Not kidding, I hadn't heard that. Wow, Oswald. Well, you know, they're adults, it's their bodies, their choice. Wouldn't ever be my choice, but geez. I draw the line where they demand that the military pay soldiers for the transition. They, you know, stuff like that. But, oh well. It didn't work out too well for Chastity Bono. She wasn't happy. Yeah, really. One thing, I mean, one thing to think, I want to be a woman. Okay, but that doesn't make you a woman when it comes to sports. There's a reason why they're segregated. Women aren't as strong or as fast as men. They just aren't. I want to see the woman who has transitioned to a man trying to decide which sports to compete in. That would be interesting. Anyway, I really gotta go. So much to do and so little motivation. And I have a great story to write. It's about nightmares. And I'm writing it for the second anthology by Dream Punk Publishers. Oh well. There's a Dream Punk group on Facebook you can check out. But I had a story in the first volume, which was, I forgot. Dreams, Mirror Maze. And the second one, coming out late this year, will be Somniscope. Okay? So I gotta get back to writing my story. I have a deadline to meet. See you next week, if not sooner. Bye.